This is Six Path Weeb. Welcome to my YouTube channel, a forum dedicated to the thoughtful analysis and exploration of alternative fiction and character dynamics. Today, we continue our examination of a fascinating intersection of universes. The fanfic topic is Naruko x Midnight, a crossover story, Part 2. In this installment, we will delve deeper into the psychological complexities, thematic resonance, and unique world building resulting from these converging storylines. Disclaimer: the content on this channel is for entertainment and discussion purposes only. I do not own any of the anime footage used in my videos. All rights and credits go to their respective creators and copyright holders. Let us commence our exploration. Starting now. Oh, so you two were just having a race to see who could build the biggest pillow fort, huh? Nemuri asked playfully, taking a seat on a cozy recliner. She smiled warmly at the energetic duo resting on either side of the couch. They were both a little out of breath and giggling from their fun activity. I must say, that looked like a very spirited game. Don't be so silly, Rumi replied with a cheerful grin, smoothing down her hair. Her rabbit ears twitched happily as her friend's smile widened. Did you honestly think we were doing anything else? I take my fort building very seriously. Well, you do have a lot of bouncing energy, Nemuri teased gently. I might just have to challenge you to a race next. Rumi countered playfully. Aw, is the fast rabbit feeling competitive today? That is it. I am going to win next time. Alright, you two, settle down, Aizawa gently interrupted, leaning against the doorway with a fond, if tired, expression. He gave a soft sigh as Rumi happily hopped back onto the cushions and Nemuri chuckled. It is wonderful that you are getting along, but let us move on to the next task. Yes, please, let's look at what is next. Naruko added in brightly, her bright blue eyes sparkling with curiosity as she adjusted her jacket, eager to change the subject. Fine, the playful heroine agreed with a nod. Internally, she was grinning brightly, imagining all the fun games and cheerful moments they would all share in the future. Good. Now that we are all settled, we can get back to the actual reason we are here. Walking over to the couch, the quiet hero gently placed a few colorful shopping bags right onto Naruko's lap. Thank you, the whiskered blonde girl said with a big smile. She oddly peeked into a bag to see some nice new t-shirts and jeans before blinking in surprise as a neat folder of paperwork was placed on top of the pile. What are those for? High school enrollment papers, Aizawa stated simply, watching carefully as the cheerful teen froze up just a little upon hearing the words high school. I hope you will read through them and make a choice by. Oh, no way. Naruko politely interrupted, gently sliding the folder onto the table. There is no way you can make me go back to regular school. I already graduated from the Ninja Academy back home. Is that so? Then would you mind showing me your special diploma to prove that? Aizawa asked with a tiny, knowing smile, causing the blonde girl to pause. Just as I thought. With a swift, practiced movement, the clever hero used his special capture scarf to safely scoop up the folder from the table, holding it back out to the girl. Without your graduation paper here with you, it is important for young heroes in training to attend a wonderful educational program. But I really do not want to. I learned all my classroom lessons when I was 12, Naruko stated, crossing her arms with a light pout, completely missing the fond looks she got from the other people in the room. Besides, I will probably be back home with my friends by tomorrow at the latest, so what is the point? That question actually seemed to pause the quiet hero for a moment. He did not respond right away, thinking about the kindest way to explain things. Poof. However, during that quiet moment, everyone's attention was drawn to a sparkly little cloud of smoke that suddenly appeared in the middle of the room. Startled but curious, Nemuri and Aizawa stood up straight to see what was happening. They ended up blinking in complete wonder when they saw a cheerful, basketball-sized red toad wearing a snazzy little blue vest and holding a neatly tied scroll in its hands. Ignoring the amazed stares, the friendly amphibian looked around the cozy room for a few moments before croaking happily when his large eyes settled on Naruko. Senin-san, I have the Hokage's response from your last message, he said brightly, holding the scroll out toward the whiskered girl. Wonderful. Grinning widely, Naruko happily took the offered roll of parchment and, as a thank you, gave the sweet toad a small box of strawberry biscuit sticks she had saved in her pocket. Thank you so much for helping me out, Gamakuchi. Of course, Senin-san, Ribbit. It was my pleasure, the polite toad, Gamakuchi, said with a neat little bow. He eagerly munched on his tasty new treat before waving goodbye and vanishing in another sparkly puff of smoke. What in the world was that? Nemuri and Mr. Aizawa shared a bewildered glance. Question marks practically hovered above their heads as they looked from the empty spot where the magical toad had just vanished, back to Naruko, who was eagerly unrolling a shimmering scroll. Both heroes had seen plenty of amazing things in their careers, but a talking toad appearing out of thin air was wonderfully unexpected. Well, that was much faster than you guessed it would be, Rumi said cheerfully. She noticed the other two heroes staring at her and tilted her head. What? Do I have a smudge on my nose? The toad, Nemuri pointed out simply, gesturing to the spot where their amphibian visitor had been. You do not seem surprised at all. Oh, that. The rabbit-eared hero waved a hand dismissively. Naruko told me she has a special bond with the toads. She can call her little friends whenever she needs to send a letter. She sent a message last night to let her friend Lady Tsunade know she arrived safely. That scroll must be her reply. Ah, that makes sense, the purple-haired hero nodded. It was certainly a magical way to communicate. As the ladies chatted, Mr. Aizawa kept a watchful eye on Naruko. He made a mental note about her amazing toad summoning abilities. However, when he saw the whiskered girl's nose crinkle in dismay as she read her letter, his curiosity got the better of him. He stepped closer, peering over the blonde girl's shoulder, and a tiny, triumphant smile appeared on his face. Naruko. I have no idea how you always find yourself on these wild adventures, but I am so relieved you are safe. We are working hard to figure out how to bring you back home. It might take a little while, so in the meantime, I need you to be on your best behavior. Learn everything you can about this new place. Write to me every single day so I know you are doing well. Lady Tsunade. P.S. I know I probably do not need to say this, but please try to stay out of trouble. If I find out you are pulling silly pranks, I will have you scrubbing the toad ponds for a month. So, the tired hero began smoothly, what were you saying earlier about not needing to go to school? Naruko let out a dramatic, playful sigh. Her shoulders slumped in mock defeat as she carefully rolled the scroll back up and tucked it away in her pocket. All right, pass me the school papers, she mumbled with a pout. She took the stack of enrollment forms from him and hopped onto the sofa, swinging her legs as she read through them. She tried her best to ignore the teasing smile Rumi was sending her way. Excellent. My work here is done. Mr. Aizawa walked toward the door, pausing just before stepping outside to look back at the whiskered girl. I have a feeling we will be working together quite a bit, Naruko. Just remember to do your best. Click. After a brief, quiet moment, a grin spread across the blonde girl's face. I am definitely going to put a fake spider on his desk, Naruko whispered to herself with a mischievous giggle. As funny as that would be, do not be too tough on him, Nemuri said kindly, gathering her things to leave. He might seem a bit grumpy, but he is just trying to help you in his own special way. Oh really? Is his special way being the neighborhood grump? The cheerful girl joked, causing both women to laugh out loud. That is a good one. Rumi cheered, clapping her hands. You are too funny, Naruko, Nemuri said, catching her breath with a warm smile. Anyway, I need to head out. I have my hero patrols to do and a city to keep safe. Have a wonderful day, you too. She stepped out, but a second later, the door popped back open. Nemuri peeked her head inside with a playful wink. Oh, and before I forget. Nemuri called out brightly. I call dibs on being Naruko's absolute favorite hero mentor. Click. And with that, the purple-haired hero was actually gone, leaving a stunned Naruko and Rumi blinking at the closed door. She is never going to let me forget that, is she? Naruko asked, a rosy blush of embarrassment on her cheeks. Nope, absolutely not, Rumi groaned playfully, crossing her arms. I still cannot believe she thinks she is cooler than me. I mean, we literally met last night, and I am clearly the most awesome hero here. Wait a second, Naruko protested, puffing out her cheeks and crossing her arms to match the rabbit hero. I thought I was going to be the coolest hero. You were the one who got startled by your own shadow earlier. I said I was surprised, not startled. Rumi huffed, though a smile tugged at the corner of her lips. Besides, there is no way a rookie like you could outjump the great Mirko. Naruko's bright blue eyes narrowed in a friendly, determined challenge. Is that so? I will have you know I trained with a legendary ninja master. I can jump clear over a house. Oh, really? Let us see who reaches the roof first, then. You are on, bunny girl. Gotcha. You can't escape the tickle monster. Rumi cheered, playfully tackling the whiskered blonde into a giant mountain of fluffy cushions. 30 minutes of joyful laughter and silly pillow tossing later. Wow, Rumi started with a happy sigh as she laid on the floor of her very messy living room, feathers from the pillows scattered everywhere like snow. She had a huge smile on her face as she turned her head to look at an equally giggly Naruko resting a few feet away. That was so much fun. It really was, the whiskered blonde agreed happily, brushing a stray feather off her nose. I think you completely buried me in pillows that time. I am the undisputed champion of the pillow fort, the bunny-eared woman declared proudly. Naruko just giggled as she sat up and easily hopped back onto her feet. Shaking off the last of the feathers, the blonde stepped over to her friend and held out a helpful hand. Truce? Rumi looked at the hand playfully before nodding and taking it. A bright smile spread across her face as she was hoisted back to her feet. Truce it is. Great, the whiskered blonde said with a wide grin of her own, which quickly turned sheepish as she looked around at the wildly scattered blankets and cushions. Sorry about the giant mess. Oh, do not worry about it, it is just as much my doing as it is yours, Rumi stated, waving off the girl's apology as she stretched her arms up high. Besides, there is nothing quite like a fantastic game to shake off a sleepy afternoon. Naruko could not help but nod in agreement, feeling incredibly energetic and happy. That said, you are still helping me tidy up, Rumi reminded her with a wink. Fair enough. Shadow Clone Jutsu. In a gentle puff of smoke, 3 cheerful duplicates of the whiskered girl appeared and quickly got to work putting the cushions back where they belonged. I always forget how handy that is, Rumi said with a chuckle before sitting on the newly neatened couch. The original blonde joined her a few moments later, picking up a stack of colorful school brochures. So, any idea which hero academy you want to attend? I wish I could just learn by exploring outside, Naruko sighed playfully, but I know going to class is important. I understand completely, Rumi said, leaning back. I always had trouble sitting still in those stiff chairs. And remembering all the little rules can be tricky, the blonde added, nodding her head. Sometimes the lessons feel like they go on forever, they both said at the exact same time, letting out synchronized, playful sighs. After a moment of shared laughter, Rumi bounced up and looked through the brochures Naruko was holding. She pulled one brightly colored pamphlet out from the rest. You should definitely choose this one. She handed it back to the whiskered blonde. Quirking an eyebrow, Naruko looked at the cover. The name of the school was UA Academy. She looked at her friend with curious blue eyes. Why this one? Well, for one, it is the most amazing hero school around. You would learn so much and have a wonderful time, Rumi explained with a bright smile. Plus, I think with your wonderful spirit, you are guaranteed to make great friends. Okay, that sounds wonderful, but... And did I forget to mention Mr. Aizawa happens to be a teacher there? Rumi interrupted with a mischievous grin. Naruko paused for a moment before an identical, playful smile spread across her own face. Do you have a pen? Meanwhile. Achoo. Goodness me. Standing just outside a large H-shaped building, wrapped snugly in a bright yellow sleeping bag, Mr. Aizawa mumbled quietly to himself as he rubbed his nose. My intuition is telling me that energetic girl must have enrolled here after all. It was secretly what he had been hoping for, though he knew the upcoming school year was going to be full of lively surprises and boisterous adventures. La da da ta, look at the sunny day, la da da da, bouncing along my way tilde. Rumi sang happily as she hopped up the steps to her floor, a small shopping bag held in one arm while she tossed a heavy training vest into the air with her free hand. La da da ta, my training is done, la da da dum, now it is time for fun tilde. So caught up in her cheerful tune, the rabbit heroine almost bumped into Namuri as they crossed paths in the hallway, the purple-haired hero walking in the same direction. Well, somebody seems to be in a wonderful mood, the sleep heroine stated warmly, walking alongside the joyful rabbit woman. Of course I am in a good mood. I finally finished wearing this clunky training gear, Rumi grinned victoriously, folding the heavy vest over her arm. I promise, it was so heavy, especially when I was trying to do my morning stretches. I can imagine, Namuri said with a nod, smiling at her friend's boundless energy. You are a wonderful singer, by the way. Have you ever considered singing professionally? You never know, maybe you could be Japan's next great superhero pop star. Stopping briefly at her friend's words, Rumi chuckled and shook her head playfully. Oh, no, thank you. I already have my hands full with cheering crowds as a hero. Fair enough, Namuri agreed with an understanding nod. While having fans was wonderful, being a top hero meant dealing with some very enthusiastic admirers. The rabbit heroine could barely count how many times she had received literal mountains of carrots in the mail from fans who assumed it was the only food she ever ate. It was very sweet, but she could only eat so much carrot cake and carrot soup before she needed a break. So, what brings you to my neck of the woods? Rumi asked her fellow heroine to change the subject. Shouldn't you be getting lesson plans ready for the new school year at the Hero Academy? I finished them yesterday, and it is my day off today, so I have plenty of free time. Namuri waved the question off before grinning at her friend. I figured I would pop in and see how things were going. Is having a new roommate treating you well? It is going quite well so far, Rumi stated happily. Really? You have a fun new friend living with you, and it is just going quite well? Nemuri asked, nudging the rabbit woman's side. Come on, I want details. Any funny mix-ups at breakfast? Arguments over who gets to choose the movie? Staying up too late playing board games? Oh, nothing too wild has happened with Naruko, Rumi laughed, listening to her friend's creative ideas. It has actually been very peaceful these past few days. Being a highly active person, Rumi had spent a lot of time showing her new roommate fun indoor activities, like her favorite streaming shows, challenging puzzles, and an old board game she had received as a gift. They also spent a good amount of time going over important, though sometimes tedious, hero guidelines. Aw, tell me you at least got to know her a bit better, Nemuri said with a playful pout. Maybe just a little bit, Rumi said cheekily, chuckling at the puppy dog eyes she received from her friend before deciding to share a few fun facts. Naruko really loves ramen, almost obsessively, and she is definitely not a morning person. Oh, and she is quite afraid of ghosts. I found that out when we watched a spooky cartoon the other night. You should have seen it, she literally leapt up onto the ceiling like a frightened kitten when the silly ghost appeared on screen. Oh my goodness, that must have been a sight, Nemuri said, giggling as she pictured the scene. Rumi nodded with a bright smile. It really was. I laughed so hard my stomach hurt when I heard the little yelp she gave. I can imagine, the sleep heroine agreed before adopting a thoughtful expression. By the way, I thought our favorite whiskered friend was supposed to be getting her exchange student paperwork sorted out today. Shouldn't you be with her, given you are her mentor right now? Since Naruko was visiting from a faraway place, she needed to complete a lot of welcome forms to study at the academy. With so many heroes with unique abilities and backgrounds around, welcoming new friends from all over the world was usually a joyful, if long, process. Plus, Naruko had 4 fantastic pro heroes ready to vouch for her bright spirit, so there was no doubt everything would go smoothly. And sit through all that boring paperwork? No, thank you, Rumi stated playfully, shaking her head. I would rather practice my kicks in the gym. Plus, I had to return my training gear today. That makes sense, Nemuri thought aloud. So, who went with her, then? Aizawa? No, Aizawa is still busy helping clean up after the bouncy ball factory mix-up yesterday, so Mount Lady took her instead. Yesterday, a mischievous prankster had accidentally set loose thousands of giant bouncy balls in the town square. Rumi had been a bit disappointed she missed out on the fun of catching them, but she knew the other heroes had handled the silly situation perfectly. Ah right, I almost forgot about that playful mess, Nemuri muttered with a nod. Speaking of messes, do you think Naruko has gotten into any silly trouble yet? Rumi asked jokingly. I do not know about you, but I can tell she is a magnet for adventure. I would not doubt it, Nemuri agreed with a warm laugh. But seriously, they are just going down to the welcoming office to sign some papers. What kind of trouble could they possibly get into? You are joking, right? Rumi stated with a knowing grin after a few seconds of total silence, earning a curious look from Nemuri. Did you really have to say that? You know, saying what could possibly go wrong is just asking for a silly adventure, the rabbit-eared heroine said, playfully shaking her head at her friend. Realizing what she meant, Nemuri could not help but roll her eyes with an amused chuckle. Oh, come on, Rumi. We are professional heroes. You cannot honestly believe in that old superstition. If we walk in there and find a giant mess, you owe me lunch, was all Rumi said in response. Yes, whatever you say, the heroine in purple replied with a dismissive wave of her hand as they finally arrived at Rumi's door. I am just shaking in my boots. Nemuri trailed off mid-sentence the moment Rumi opened the door. Both of their eyes widened in complete surprise at the scene unfolding in the living room. Why? Naruko was sitting on the couch with a look of tired but fond resignation on her face. A small smudge of flour rested on her cheek, while Yu was over in the kitchen pouring 2 large glasses of iced fruit punch. Now, that alone was unusual enough for a quiet afternoon, but there were 2 unexpected guests in the apartment, sitting on either side of Naruko. To the whiskered blonde girl's left was a kind-looking woman with shoulder-length white hair and bright, cheerful eyes. She was wearing a beautifully knitted, oversized sweater and was happily snacking on a tray of sushi while Naruko patted her back in a comforting manner. Meanwhile, on Naruko's right was a teenage girl with straw blonde hair tied up in 2 neat buns. Oddly enough, she was completely tangled up in brightly colored crafting yarn, making her look like a giant, colorful caterpillar. Despite her predicament, the girl looked blissfully content with rosy cheeks as she happily enjoyed a large strawberry lollipop. Hello Rumi, hello Nemuri, how is your afternoon going? Naruko asked once she noticed the new arrivals standing in the doorway. She gestured gently to the ladies beside her. And before you ask, I promise I have a perfectly logical explanation for all of this. Where do we even? Nemuri started to say, only to stop when Rumi playfully tapped her on the shoulder and walked past her. Start from the beginning, the rabbit heroine stated, flopping down onto a nearby recliner and smiling eagerly, ready for story time. Earlier that day. Oh, I am so glad that paperwork is finally over, Naruko sighed happily as she and you stepped out of the city registry building. The blonde girl stretched her arms wide while her taller companion stifled a sleepy yawn. You and me both, you murmured, stretching her shoulders. I think the people in that office have made it an art form to make time move as slowly as possible. No kidding, but at least it is finished, Naruko said optimistically, patting the pocket that held her brand new temporary residence visa. It was only valid for a few months, but by then, she would hopefully have her permanent paperwork sorted out. So, are we heading back to the apartment now? Not quite. Let us get something to eat first, my stomach is rumbling, you said, lightly patting her tummy before linking her arm with Naruko's and leading the way. There is a wonderful little sushi stand just a few blocks from here. We can grab a delicious lunch to go. Feeling rather hungry herself, Naruko nodded enthusiastically and let the cheerful blonde hero lead the way. Sounds wonderful to me. Sure enough, after a short walk, they arrived at the charming little sushi stand. It had a warm, welcoming atmosphere, and since it was delightfully uncrowded, the pair did not have to wait long to place their orders. While they waited for their food, the two blondes chatted happily, swapping funny stories from their pasts and giggling about their first time meeting. And so, while everyone else was eating their snacks, I tossed a small balloon filled with catnip near Kiba and gently let loose a basket of playful rescue kittens. You should have seen it, he was carefully tiptoeing all over the yard for an hour trying not to step on a parade of purring cats. Speaking of which. Oh my goodness, that sounds hilarious, you exclaimed between fits of giggles as Naruko finished telling her about the harmless prank she had pulled to get back at the dog-loving boy for hiding her favorite instant ramen. It really was, especially since his dog Akamaru did not even try to help him. I distracted the puppy with a yummy dog treat while Kiba's sister took pictures of the whole fluffy situation, Naruko added with a bright grin, making you double over with laughter. I heard she even framed one of the pictures for their living room, but I have not seen it yet. Back in Naruko's hometown. Why? Kiba asked in playful disbelief as he stared at a framed picture on his wall. It featured him covered head to toe in a dozen sleeping kittens, with one tiny orange tabby resting proudly right on top of his head. Of all the lovely family portraits we have, why does this have to be in the center of the room? Hi, and back. Remind me to always stay on your good side, you said once she managed to catch her breath, wiping a tear of mirth from her eye as she accepted their neatly wrapped lunch boxes from the shop owner. You definitely should, if you know what is good for you, Naruko teased, giving her friend a wonderfully goofy glare before both of them burst into a fresh fit of giggles. Speaking of good sides, though, we should probably start heading back before I accidentally wander off and get lost in the city again. Oh, you worry far too much, the taller blonde said with a reassuring wave of her hand. You will be completely fine as long as I'm around to guide you. Besides, we just stopped to get a quick lunch, how much trouble could we possibly get into? As soon as those words left Yu's lips, Naruko's cheerful smile slowly faded into a completely flat, unamused stare. What? Yu asked, blinking innocently. Is there something on my face? You just had to say it, didn't you? The whiskered blonde girl asked with a completely playful sigh. You just had to go and jinx us. It took a moment, but the light bulb finally clicked on in the tall hero's brain. You laughed a little nervously. Don't be so dramatic, Naruko. That is just a silly superstition. Heads up. A cheerful voice suddenly shouted, cutting you off. Both blondes snapped their attention to the side just in time for a stray, bouncy black and white soccer ball to gently bonk the tall hero on the forehead, making her stumble back and sit right down on the soft grass. Catching the rolling ball as it bounced, Naruko cheerfully tossed it back to the group of playing children while smiling down at her friend. You were saying? She teased. Back to the present. Oh, my goodness. Ha 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 ha, Nemuri giggled brightly, nearly tipping over in her comfy chair and kicking her feet in amusement. She wasn't alone in her joy, either. Rumi laughed heartily, slapping her knee with a wide, infectious grin. Oh, hush, it wasn't that funny, you mumbled playfully, pretending to pout at the two laughing women. Anyway, Naruko continued, her blue eyes sparkling. After that, I helped you over to a nearby park bench and a few minutes after the soccer accident. Oh, my poor pride, you sighed, resting on the bench and pressing a cool pouch of ice against her forehead to stop a little bump from forming. This proves nothing, by the way. Yes, yes, just keep telling yourself that, Naruko replied with a friendly eye roll before taking in the surrounding park. It was a lovely little space, filled with a wonderful variety of blooming flowers and tall, shady trees. Inhaling deeply, she couldn't help but smile warmly and lean back on the bench. You noticed and raised a curious brow. What is up with you? You look like you are daydreaming. Just feeling a little homesick, I suppose, Naruko said, her gaze drifting up to the fluffy white clouds. Ah, right, you murmured softly, knowing about the cheerful girl's otherworldly origins. If you do not mind me asking, what is your home like? It is a beautiful village hidden in the leaves, Naruko said softly. We had a bit of trouble recently, though. A very grumpy fellow named Nagato caused a giant fuss and made a huge mess of the town square. Thankfully, everyone worked together and stayed perfectly safe, but it took a lot of sweeping to clean up. Wow, he must have been quite a nuisance, the dark-eyed blonde said, trying to picture someone making such a huge mess all by themselves. You have no idea, the whiskered heroine said, rubbing her hands gently as she remembered the tough magical puzzle they had to solve to calm him down. She still had to worry about keeping her friends safe from other mischievous troublemakers while she was exploring this brand new world. A peaceful silence fell over the pair after that. Yu happily enjoyed her delicious sushi lunch, while Naruko watched the sky. After a moment, unnoticed by her friend, the whiskered girl closed her eyes and sat very still. A familiar, bright orange coloration appeared softly around her eyes like cheerful face paint. Wow, there are so many wonderful people here, she thought as her special sage mode senses felt the happy, bustling energy of the city around her. It amazed her how many different folks lived in one place, like a giant, colorful tapestry of life. She loved practicing this skill to stay focused and calm. It also let her feel the unique magic, or quirks, of the people nearby. For example, her roommate Rumi felt as energetic as a hopping bunny, while a neighbor down the hall felt as sturdy as a grand mountain. Suddenly, Naruko's golden toad-like eyes opened wide. She looked toward a teenager walking along the park path. She was a quiet girl with short brown hair, wearing a green and white school uniform and an eye patch. She seemed to be enjoying a nice walk. But Naruko's special senses felt something unusual. Inside the girl's cheerful energy, there was a gloomy, grumpy little shadow hiding away, making the poor girl feel worried and scared. Naruko knew she had to help. The grumpy shadow was trying to make the girl feel sad, and that was simply unacceptable. I need to go wash my hands, Naruko said politely, standing up. Okay, hurry back. Yu replied happily, taking another bite of a cucumber roll. Once Naruko stepped around the corner and out of sight, she zoomed away in a flash of friendly golden light. The little gloomy shadow thought it was having a wonderfully sneaky day hiding inside the teen's heart. It wanted to spread sadness everywhere, and nothing was going to stop it. Swoosh. Oh, my stars. The teen gasped out loud. Suddenly, instead of walking on the busy sidewalk, she found herself gently guided to a quiet, peaceful garden bench, with the bright-eyed, whiskered blonde girl standing right in front of her. I am not sure what kind of grumpy shadow you are, Naruko said gently but firmly, looking right into the girl's eyes. But you need to leave this nice girl alone right now. The shadow trembled inside. How does she know I am here? It thought in absolute shock. And now wait a minute, miss. I will help you leave, Naruko interrupted warmly. She raised her hand, and a beautiful, soothing blue light began to glow from her palm. The bright, happy light made the gloomy shadow realize it could no longer hide. You cannot make me go. The shadow squeaked, trying its best to sound scary. If you try, I will make her even sadder. No, you won't, Naruko said with a confident, brilliant smile. She moved her glowing hand closer, the warm light radiating pure joy and kindness. The gloomy shadow felt a shiver of defeat, its sadness melting away as it realized it was no match for such wonderful, positive energy. Buzz. Buzz. Finally, just as Kuin felt a wave of worry wash over her, Naruko knew she had to act. The little girl was completely surrounded by a pesky swarm of shadowy gloomy bugs that were buzzing noisily around her face. The swarming bugs tried to dart away, but Naruko was much too quick. She stepped forward and held out her hand, revealing a bright, spinning sphere of sparkling energy she had been gathering just for this moment. With a gentle toss, she sent the glowing orb right into the middle of the swarm. The beautiful light expanded like a warm sunbeam, gently chasing every single gloomy bug away and turning them into harmless, glittery dust that floated off on the breeze. A moment later, Naruko let her bright energy fade. With the pesky bugs gone, the whiskered blonde girl had to make sure Kuin was all right. She rushed forward and gently caught the tired little girl in her arms just as she drifted off into a peaceful sleep from all the excitement. Oh my stars, how am I going to explain this to you? Naruko wondered. She checked Kuin's breathing and smiled when she saw the little girl was resting comfortably, dreaming sweet dreams. I suppose I will just have to tell her the truth. Exactly 10 seconds later, everyone in the park jumped as a loud shout of absolute surprise echoed through the trees from someone who had seen the dazzling light show. Present time. So, let me make sure I understand, Nemuri said, her eyebrows raising in surprise as she looked at Naruko with total wonder. You went for a walk. And just found a very sleepy little girl who needed a hand? That is exactly right, the whiskered blonde girl said with a bright nod. She had shared a much simpler version of her adventure with her friends, knowing it was always best to keep things cheerful. After making sure she was safe and resting, I brought her straight to you, and she called for a friendly hero to give her a ride to the healing center. Thankfully, the swift hero Ingenium was in the area, so we did not have to wait long at all, you added with a warm smile. He actually sent a message right before you all arrived to let us know she is resting beautifully and will be perfectly fine after a good nap. That is wonderful news, Rumi said with an approving nod before gesturing toward the other two girls who had joined them. Then I suppose that is when you met. Oh, excuse me, I never asked for your names. Please forgive my manners, I completely forgot to introduce myself, the gentle girl with snow-white hair said in a polite, soft voice, bowing gracefully. My name is Ray. It is so very nice to meet you. Do not worry about a thing. I am Rumi, the energetic bunny-eared girl replied, offering a friendly handshake, which Ray accepted with a sweet smile. And I am Nemuri. The pleasure is all mine, Nemuri added, offering a polite bow of her own. This is Toga, Naruko chimed in happily, pointing to the girl beside her who was cheerfully enjoying a large, swirly strawberry lollipop. Hello there, Toga mumbled happily around her candy, waving enthusiastically at her new friends. Anyway, back to our adventure, Naruko continued. Time to rewind a little bit. Thank you so much for coming so quickly, Ingenium, you said to a tall man wearing shiny, modern-looking rescue armor. Naruko carefully passed the sleeping little girl into the kind hero's arms. It is no trouble at all. Ingenium replied in a joyful voice that rang clearly through his helmet. You can always count on me when somebody needs a helping hand. Now, I must be off to make sure she gets tucked into a cozy bed. Not waiting for another word, the armored hero zoomed away at an incredible speed, waving back at them until he vanished into the distance in just a few seconds. Wow! He sure is fast, Naruko stated with a grin, dusting off her bright orange jacket. He certainly is, you agreed with a nod. She gently took her blonde friend's hand to lead the way. Come on, let us get going before we run into any more surprises. Great idea, Naruko agreed. As the two girls walked away, neither of them noticed a nearby bush rustling gently. A few green leaves parted to reveal a pair of bright, curious eyes that were watching Naruko with absolute awe. Wow! She is such an amazing hero, a soft voice whispered from the leaves. About 5 minutes later. I promise, nobody is getting a single cupcake until we say so. You have got to be kidding me, Naruko and you sighed together. They were standing behind a colorful ribbon set up by the town's safety patrol, watching a very silly situation unfold along with several other townspeople. It seemed a trio of grumpy mischief makers wearing oversized sunglasses had decided to block the entrance to the local bakery. Two local heroes, Kamui Woods and Death Arms, were trying their best to talk the grumpy trio into sharing the treats, but the mischief makers were throwing a huge tantrum. Sadly, the bakery was right in the middle of the path Naruko and you needed to take to get back to Rumi's house. The leader of the mischief makers stood by the door, waving his arms and shouting about how hungry he was. His two friends were guarding the display cases, crossing their arms and pouting at anyone who walked by. I completely blame you for taking this route, Naruko joked to you as they were forced to wait. The heroes were doing their best to resolve the silly standoff, but based on how things were going, we have plenty of cupcakes for everyone. Kamui Woods offered kindly from the sidewalk. If you step outside, we can all have a giant picnic together. No way. We want every single one. The grumpy leader shouted back. It was probably going to take a little while. Oh, please, there is no way this is my fault, the tall heroine you replied with a playful huff, crossing her arms. She gave her blonde friend a silly smile as Naruko adjusted her jacket and settled in to watch the ridiculous bakery standoff. Wait, what? Snapping her gaze back toward Naruko, Yu's eyes widened in sheer amazement. The frightened lady that the mischief makers had been bothering was now being carried safely in the gentle arms of the whiskered blonde girl. The lady had a wonderfully baffled expression on her face as she looked around in complete confusion. Not only that, but the three boys who had been caught in the middle of the commotion were now safely standing a few feet away out of harm's reach. Oh my goodness! How did she do that? Hey! What just happened? And for the cherry on top, all three of the troublemakers were suddenly and safely bundled together by a sparkling ribbon of glowing energy at the entrance of the little mini-mart. Whoa! What in the world? She was so fast. Did you see that? See what? I blinked and it was over like magic. Do you think it was a top hero? I did see a flash of yellow for a second, I think. Similar cheerful whispers broke out through the crowd as everyone tried to figure out the amazing rescue, especially the neighborhood safety officers as they gently guided the troublemakers away. Hey, are you all right? The only exception to the bustling crowd was Naruko. The whiskered blonde girl's entire attention was on the lady in her arms. Naruko gently set her back down on her own 2 feet, making sure she was steady as the crowd began to happily disperse now that everyone was safe. Huh? The white-haired lady mumbled softly, looking at her hero before the question finally registered. Oh, yes, I'm perfectly fine. Great. Then would you mind letting go of my jacket? Naruko asked with a sunny giggle, gesturing downward where the lady's hand had reflexively clenched onto the blonde's bright outfit for support. I am so sorry, she stuttered sheepishly, quickly releasing her grip and stepping back. She almost tripped on a stray pebble, but Naruko was there in a flash, catching her arm gracefully. Whoa there, that was close, Naruko said kindly, pulling her back up and placing a reassuring hand on her back. As she helped her balance, Naruko got a closer look at the lady's face. She noticed the slight redness around the lady's eyes, showing she might have been feeling sad recently. Are you sure you're feeling okay? Excuse me, a deep, booming voice kindly interrupted them. The two girls turned to see a tall, sturdy rescue hero standing before them with his arms crossed and a gentle but serious smile. If you two are done chatting, I need to ask you both some questions for my report. Oh. Yes, sir. Naruko chimed, stepping back with a bright, embarrassed smile, while the lady blushed lightly. A few feet away, Yu was giggling to herself as she watched the wholesome scene unfold, happily waving to another friendly hero who walked past. Let's just get straight to the point. I need your names and your special abilities, please, the hero requested. Right away. I'm Naruko Uzumaki, and I use energy magic, the cheerful blonde girl said. She held up her hand, and a beautiful, glowing, marble-sized sphere of sparkling light danced on her palm for a few moments. Rei Todoroki, and I have snow magic, the newly named Rei said quietly. She mirrored Naruko's action, and a soft, beautiful cloud of sparkling, cold mist drifted from her fingers before vanishing into the air. Nodding in approval, the hero turned his attention to Rei, his eyes filled with gentle concern. Are you hurt at all, ma'am? No, sir. Just a little surprised, Rei answered softly. Very well. Thank you for your time, ladies. You both have a wonderful day, the hero stated before walking off to finish his duties, leaving the two girls to share a warm, shy smile. Fast forward. Ha 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 ha. Nemuri and Rumi leaned against each other, laughing merrily while poor Naruko and Rei flushed in embarrassment. The whiskered blonde girl pouted playfully at her laughing friends, while Rei shyly covered her rosy cheeks with her hands. Even Yu was giggling softly into her hand with a mischievous little grin. Yeah, laugh it up, Naruko muttered with a playful huff, tapping her fingers on her chair as she waited for her friends to calm down. Oh, don't be a grumpy goose, Nemuri said once she caught her breath. It is just so sweet how quickly you make friends, Naruko. Naruko tilted her head, her bright blue eyes wide with innocent confusion. What do you mean? Seriously, Naruko? Rumi asked, unable to believe how wonderfully oblivious her friend was. You went out for a walk and ended up bringing a brand new friend home for a sleepover. You have a heart of gold. Well, I couldn't just leave Rei out in the cold. Naruko explained, her face turning as red as an apple. She didn't have anywhere else to go, and friends help friends. Is that so? Nemuri asked gently, turning to Rei. If I may explain, Rei began, getting supportive nods from everyone in the cozy room. You know about the power outage at the City Recovery Center yesterday? I was staying there to get some rest, but we had to evacuate when the lights went out. Ah, that explains the comfortable clothes, the purple-haired Nemuri hummed thoughtfully. The soft, flowing dress Rei wore was clearly meant for resting comfortably indoors. So you just needed a safe place to stay for a bit? Exactly. I honestly tried to return right away once the lights came back on, the gentle snow user explained with a soft shake of her head. Unfortunately, their computers went offline during the outage, and they couldn't figure out which room I was supposed to be in. I see, Nemuri said, her heart melting at the honest story. She's telling the truth. I tried calling the center to help her, Yu added, a small frown appearing on her face. They said they are trying to fix the computers, but until then, they asked if she could stay with a friend. Yep. And that was right around the time we ran into our sleepy little friend here, Naruko added, pointing down with a fond smile. Beside her, little Toga was resting her head on Naruko's shoulder, happily snoring after eating way too many strawberry cupcakes at the bakery. She had a frosting smudge on her cheek and a giant, sleepy grin. So yummy, Toga mumbled happily, snuggling closer to the whiskered blonde's side. Thanks, Naru-chan. You are the bestiest best friend ever. Is she in a sugar coma? Nemuri, Rei, Yu, Naruko, and Rumi all thought at the exact same time as they watched the giggling, dizzy girl. If you say so, Naruko laughed softly, patting the top of Toga's head before turning back to Nemuri and Rumi. So yeah, that is how we all ended up here. Rewind, 15 minutes after the rescue. Alright. Aha. Seriously? There has to be. Okay. Yes, thank you so much. Have a great day, Yu sighed softly, hanging up her phone with a tiny shake of her head. Well, we tried our best. I told you it might be tricky, but thank you so much for trying, Yu, Rei said, offering a polite bow. It was the least I could do. Yu smiled warmly. The three girls, Yu, Rei, and the bright-spirited Naruko, were walking together down a sunny, peaceful street lined with trees. Rei had just finished explaining her situation to the two heroes after Naruko noticed she was walking without proper shoes. Naruko had immediately wanted to help. Well, it is always better to try and help than to do nothing at all, Naruko chimed in happily, resting her hands behind her head as she walked. And don't worry, Rei. Like I said, you can come stay with me and Rumi until the center fixes their computers. We can have a fun sleepover. I am so incredibly grateful, Naruko, but I really wouldn't want to be a bother, Rei said softly, looking down at her feet. She gave a tiny squeak of surprise when Naruko wrapped a comforting arm around her shoulders, flashing a brilliant, sunny grin. It is no bother at all. Besides, what kind of hero would I be if I didn't help a new friend? Rei blinked in confusion when Naruko suddenly trailed off, her bright smile slipping away into a thoughtful look as her gaze flickered around the area. Naruko. The white-haired girl started to ask, only to yelp in surprise when the whiskered blonde gently nudged her toward you right as a slender hand holding a brightly colored ribbon fluttered by her face. Hi there. The owner of the hand, a smiling blonde girl with her hair done up in cute buns and rosy cheeks, said in a cheery tone while twirling her ribbon at Naruko again, making her hop back playfully. I am Toga. Let us be friends and play tag. I do not quite know how to reply to that, Naruko stated honestly, a question mark seeming to hover above her head at the joyful girl's random statement. That did not stop her from stepping aside to avoid the ribbon or gently catching Toga's hand, making the colorful fabric flutter safely to the grass. Whoopsie, looks like I dropped it, the cheerful girl said sheepishly before pulling two more ribbons from her pockets. Good thing I carry spares. Running forward again, Toga tried to playfully tap Naruko's arm, but the whiskered teen easily sidestepped. Tag. You are it, Toga giggled, tossing a ribbon into the air. That is a very surprising way to ask someone to play, Naruko replied, gently catching the flying ribbon before it could land on you. Why are you chasing me so enthusiastically anyway? Instead of answering, the joyful girl suddenly moved closer, grasped Naruko's hands, and with an impressive little jump, happily hopped onto her back for a piggyback ride. This is fun. I have always wanted to be friends with someone as bright as you, Toga said giddily, holding on tight as she found a comfortable spot. We are going to be super best friends. Okay, seriously, why are we running around? Are you trying to practice for a race or something? I honestly cannot tell, Naruko asked as she glanced back at the odd girl, easily balancing her thanks to her excellent training. She is way too calm about this, you thought from the sidelines as she stood next to Rei protectively. The white-haired girl and you watched in awe as Naruko seemed entirely unbothered by this random girl bounding out of nowhere. I just really love making new friends, Toga said playfully, leaning over to gently boop Naruko's nose. You have such wonderful energy. I just want to hang out. Great, so you are just super energetic, Naruko muttered in the mildest tone possible, her expression turning into a soft smile as the cheerful girl kept cheering. Alright, time out. In a swift but gentle move, she carefully set Toga down on the ground. Then, Naruko reached into her pocket, pulled out a shiny wrapped sweet treat, and placed it in the dazed girl's hand, making her blink in surprise. She was not the only one either, as both Rei and Yu stared with dumbfounded looks at the whiskered blonde's kindness. After a few seconds, Toga's smile grew even wider and brighter as she unwrapped the candy, happily enjoying the treat as Naruko gently held her hand. I think that is enough excitement for today, Naruko said softly. She then walked toward home, leading the newly calmed girl along with her as a still stunned Rei and Yu followed. Present. And that is what happened. Naruko finished her tale with a sigh, idly patting a now napping Toga's head as she rested comfortably on the sofa next to her. So that girl tried to play a wild game of tag with you, and instead of taking her to her parents or teachers, you brought her to my home? Rumi asked in surprise, her eyebrows raising as she spoke. Yep. Why? Because she just looked lonely, Naruko answered, getting thoughtful nods from the rabbit hero and Namuri. I know what it is like to feel left out. She did not chase me to be mean, she was just desperate for a friend. I am guessing it has something to do with her quirk making her too energetic for others to keep up with. It is possible, Namuri said while glancing at Toga's peaceful sleeping form. Since the rise of quirks, many people have struggled to control their unique abilities and how they affect their daily lives. A good example would be one of her own sidekicks who had a loud voice quirk and often accidentally startled people away. It would not be the first time I have seen someone misunderstood, Rumi added with a nod. Even so, we should probably try to find her family in the morning so they know she is safe. We can definitely do that, the whiskered blonde agreed, stretching her arms up high. Look, it has been a really long, busy day, and I am very sleepy. Why do we not call it a night and figure everything out in the morning? Okay? Great. Good night. Not waiting for a response, she walked out of the room toward the bedrooms. Before popping back in for a second and pointing playfully at Toga. Please make sure she is comfortable, or I will be very disappointed in you all. With her absence, a quiet, peaceful silence fell over the three heroines, the grateful Ray, and the sleeping new friend. Goodness, what an eventful day, Namuri whispered with a soft, warm smile. That concludes today's video. Thank you for being such an amazing YouTube family. If you want to help support the channel, please drop a like, share this video, and hit subscribe. 6 Path Weeb.